Okay. Which means we have a event going now. There we are. Live control room. Hey, look, we're good. All right.
Yeah, mine didn't even last.
Okay. I'm gonna do the attendance thing again. So don't if I butcher. It's all part of the learning process. So and this will be by last name, but I'm gonna start with Heather. There you are. Alan. Thank you. David. There you are. Alexei. Here? Where is here? Oh, there it is. Okay. Annabelle, I know I saw earlier. She's Julian. Right? Alex. Diaz. No? Okay. Logan. There you are. Celine. Here is where? Ah, okay. Thank you. So yeah, if you just say here, I just hear a voice in the background. I can't put faces to names. Satora, thank you. Ilana, hello. Elliot, this is the Elliot Lane with 2 T's and 1 L. How convenient. Lucas, here. All right. Elliot Murphy, all right. Heather, okay. Lariva, Evan. See, these are people I know. I'm so sorry. It's already happening. Is it Wheelie or wait? Wiley. I just gonna omit the U, and it's all gonna make sense to me. I swear. Colin. All right. I remember butchering it last week, and here we go again. Is it Quansiva? Quansiva. All right, I'm gonna take notes. Okay, Naomi. Yep. Josh, Tamburini. Yep, and Ben. And I know I have new person will be taking care of you. We'll take care of the ad code at the break. Okay. All right. Whew. Okay, so as you can see, the stream has started, and I'm sure that is fascinating for everyone. So again, before we get rolling, if you have a chance to go ahead and do this now, log on your system, log into the file server for the labs. Go to, so here's the username, no password needed. Find the 74.21C folder, in-class materials week 2. And download both the Premiere and Audition folders to your desktop. So that's what we're going to be playing with after we go through stuff. But to start with, I'm kind of running through this. I want to get that going so that we can get through everything else. So yeah, interesting thing this week. How many of you had absolutely no problem whatsoever with the homework? 2 people. 3, 2.5. All right. Out of a room of this size, that's actually not so awesome. So yeah, let's talk about and I don't feel bad for the fact. Well, I feel bad that it didn't work out for you, but I don't feel bad for the fact that the problems that you run into are they're seminal problems for editors. Linking media is perhaps one of the biggest headaches that that editors face in dealing with their projects, or dealing with moving projects from one person to another, or from one disk to another, or computer to another. You've experienced it firsthand in the most probably ungentle way. So my initial take on that is I'm not going to be particularly brutal about grading this because of some of the vagaries of how that project was set up. And you saw it last week in the stream and here in the class about how once I unplugged my magic hard drive, all sorts of things went wrong for me, and I'm the one that's supposed to know what's going on. So when I see that you guys are struggling with it, I sympathize. So let's figure out. So let's see if we can make this a little more conversational in terms of how to troubleshoot this. How many people had problems with linking the media? Couple? A handful. Okay. A lot of it has to do with understanding how the media is placed. Some of it had to do with the fact that this is a project that's been upgraded a few times, and what really needs to happen and will happen in my notes for next time is that I'm going to reform the project from scratch. I'm not going to upgrade the project from the previous version of Premiere. Who had a problem exporting the media to an intermediate codec? So that's about the other half of the classroom. What problems? So describe to me what problems you faced. What were some of the challenges that you ran into? Go ahead.
Well, in the end, I realized that for some reason the encoder, if I put it into the queue, I couldn't get it to export. If I just hit export, I could get it to.
Got it. Okay, so part of it was the tendency for Premiere, which that is another thing that's changed in the last 2 years, is the tendency for Premiere now, and I can show you this, is that when you export a project, the highlighted button in the media export window is to queue the project for exporting by using Adobe Media Encoder. Generally speaking, that's part of Adobe's strategy to funnel all of your exporting needs there. So the downside, though, is that Adobe Media Encoder may not possess some of the specific codecs that that Premiere is using, though I don't know that that's for sure true. Let's bring this up so that we can take a look at it. So, and to my own, I'm going to eat my own dog food for a moment here and connect to the server, download those files so that we can take a look at it. But I'm going to log in as me. Okay. So give me a moment here. Okay. So I'm going to take these, going to drag them here. I always love the speed at which Premiere loads. The problem that we're going to run into is, and this is actually the Premiere project that I had you guys download is a subset of what we did last week, and I've stripped more out of it, so it's like it's really reduced to its core. What I want to go through with this is I'm going to load the project. Hello. I don't need that. We can skip that. Thanks for that additional fun bit. All right. So we'll open this. All right. So when we get to exporting by hitting Command M or Control M, assuming the project is, there we go. So when you look at export settings, you'll notice that the default button on this is labeled Q. And so if you were to try to export the setting in here, it would open Adobe Media Encoder. So, but let's actually go through this together on how to export this the way that I had envisioned it was going to work for you. So again, the format for all of these was going to be QuickTime. though you could, clever folks could have come up here and chosen DNX HD, MXF, OP1A. That would have worked. And this was one option for exporting. But we'll stick with this one to start with. So QuickTime was that it's not a preset, even though they do have GoPro Cineform. You could have chosen that preset and it would have been one export right there. Okay. If you go to export this directly, it should work. So yeah. Okay. So it's encoding it, and then we're done. We'll do it again as, this time let's do it as ProRes, which is not a preset here. So you would have to come down to this particular area right here where it says video codec and choose Apple ProRes 422. And now all of a sudden your preset is now says custom. You know, you don't have a lot of choices with your video settings. I will say that you do have your picture settings are all automatically set to match the source of your sequence, which is what these check marks do. You come down here, you do have a bit depth, which I don't really go into much, but if you choose the 16 bits per channel, it's it's twice the file size. Your mileage may vary. The rest of this is, once you've selected this, basically you're at the same spot. You'll export it as ProRes 422. And then for the last one is you could have come up here under QuickTime as well and chosen DNX HD. And this would tell you that the resolution would have to be either 720p or 1080p. Generally speaking, you can do any of these. I mean, obviously, what you're talking about here, and I don't go into too much detail about this codec because it's really used more for folks using Avid. But if you were sending a sequence or a pre-render off to somebody that works with Avid, they might ask for this. Generally speaking, though, those editors all import the same formats that these export as well. So say for instance, you wanted to do 1080p DNX HD SQ, which is standard quality, 8-bit. There's HQ, which is higher quality. Then there's HQX, which is the extended, it's higher resolution, 10-bit per channel. But considering the source material, either SQ or HQ, 1080p would be fine. And then click export, and it exports. So you end up with three. I mean, I asked you to do 2 files. This is one way to get 3 files done, and all of them should be. You'll notice that some of them are smaller. So for this size, this is the project is only 30 seconds or 20 seconds long now, so it's super short. I cut it way back, but the render is well, actually, the DNX HD was like insane. Oh, that's partly because they up-resed it. For the Cineform is 120 megs. The ProRes, I should just rename these so that you see what they are. So this is Cineform. This one is ProRes. And this one is DNX HD. All right. So you might wonder why these two are so much smaller than this, and the reason why is because DNX HD is not as flexible in terms of the resolutions that it exports. That's again not something to concern yourselves with. Generally speaking, when you're doing these edits or when you're doing these projects, you're going to be working in 1080p with 1080p footage, and you're going to be exporting a 1080p project. So what you would find is that ProRes, had we, what the heck, let's do it. If we exported this in ProRes and we didn't, and we ignored the match source, normally the match source, the source sequence was 960 by 540, which is 1/4 the pixel size of the of 1080p. So we can do 1920 1080. So we update the resolution here. You'll see that when we export it as, I'm going to save this as ProRes 1080p, and export will go to, takes a little longer because it's basically double, it's just doubling the size of the, or 4 times the size. So now ProRes 1080p is 400 megs instead of 175, so it's basically doubled in size. Now, this doesn't answer your question about why the export did not work for in the queue. And that, was that here or was that at home? At home. Okay, so let's talk about, so sometimes when you install Premiere on your desktop, Adobe Media Encoder is automatically installed with it. Okay. That said, if you have Photoshop and you install Photoshop, Adobe Media Encoder is installed. So if for any reason you install one of the apps from that exports media, AME will be part of your that install. If for any reason it gets corrupted, which does happen, you would have to remove it and reinstall it in order to deal with this.
I was wondering about the recent update to the 2018.
Yeah.
Maybe in that process, something like that.
It's possible. Sometimes when you, depending on how you do Creative Cloud, sometimes you'll run into, when you go to install a new major version like 2018 over 2017, they'll ask you if you want to remove all of the previous versions of the application. Sometimes people don't do that. If you kept the older ones, it is conceivable that there's some mismatch. But generally speaking, if you send something from one program, one app to another, whether that's from Premiere to After Effects, Premiere to Audition, Premiere to Adobe Media Encoder, and it doesn't work, generally speaking, it's because Adobe has how to put this nicely, gone south. And the remediation in my experience has been having to reinstall. And I know that is for folks who don't have real big broadband, or they're isolated and don't have the ability to just download the program again from Adobe servers. That is a setback. And so
downloading everything new, or just
it would probably involve reinstalling your applications, all of them.
okay.
All of the ones that export media. So let's do this one where I said this was CF queued, and then we'll move on. So if you click Q, what should happen here is that this is supposed to launch Adobe Media Encoder, all right, which is loading right here. And so if for some reason that this icon doesn't show up, if for some reason once you click Q and you don't see anything launch, whether in Windows or on Mac, that's a key clue. I don't know in your case if it's exactly what's happening, but that's one of the symptoms. Okay.
But I think I figured it out.
All right.
Or at least I get
Any other particular problems with exporting, or did my demo run through most of the problems? Did I explain anything?
Well, I exported a video and then played back.
So when you tried to play it back, okay. So, and this is what you're talking about when you go to play it. Oh, see, now it finally comes up with it. Okay, great. Thanks for interrupting me. When you go to play it, it wants to convert it or it wants to do something else, right? This is kind of now. Was that in Windows or is that okay? So in Windows, it would bring up the Windows Media Player and it would just show a black screen. You'd see black screen, but you'd hear, right? You'd hear the audio. Okay. Generally speaking, that's the problem that you're running into is that the operating system, meaning Windows or Mac, doesn't know what to do with Cineform or DNX HD or ProRes. Especially, well, most Macs will play ProRes in QuickTime Player, but they will not play Cineform. They will not play. I mean, this is what happens when you do DNX HD on the Mac is that you see this, oh, it's converting, and it's like, oh, I can't convert this, so oh well. The answer is that you come over here to Premiere. If you make sure that you're in Premiere, and you go to let me find I gotta go find my users and student. I love how we log in as student even though we're not students. Desktop Premiere, and you'll see that if you double click this, it will open it up and play it. Okay, and this is Cineform. This is the Cineform codec that I did. If you do the same thing with DNX HD, it loads it into come on, there we go. It loads it into the source viewer here, and you can play it. So you can play any of the media that you export out of Premiere by loading it into Premiere. Okay, you might not be able to play it at the operating system. You might not be able to play it out of the File Explorer or the Finder, but you can play it in Premiere. Okay, you just use the media browser if you don't want to actually bring it into the project and you just want to be able to see what you created. Now, that does beg the obvious question of why would you export something that you can't watch on your operating system? That's because you're editing. These are intermediate formats. They're not final formats that are meant for end users to view. Okay, so it's a little hand wavy, I'll give you that, but it's still, these three codecs that I've shown you guys, Cineform, DNX HD, ProRes, are all codecs that are edit friendly. Okay, remember that. They're edit friendly. And the reason why they are is that they do the work of providing each frame of video is encoded fully as part of the encoding, as opposed to H.264. And I don't have a clever drawing for you that describes how MPEG-4 videos are created, but it's like you put a stake in the ground and then you kind of just take a little bit of you just go, what's the difference here? You know, I've moved 3 inches. What's the difference there? Oh, it's 3 inches. What's the difference here? Oh, that's 6 inches. And then, but you get 2 feet away and it's like, okay, now I want to know exactly where everything is at that point. And so, but up until that point, up until you've made that distance, you've gone that distance, it still wants to just do what's changed from the last one. And that's work your computer has to do that you don't need it to do when you're working with these intermediate formats. So this frees up computer horsepower for effects, color correction, other stuff that you want things to do inside of Premiere or even After Effects. Okay? So if you get the black screen and you want to check the media, is that you bring it into, or you open up Premiere and you go through the media browser and load the clip that way, the way I just described it right here. So you go into the media browser, okay, find the clip on your disk, or you can add it, you can re-import it into the project. So you could always go back to this project and in the project itself, double click and bring in these 4 clips, and now there'll be clips that you can just bring up and view inside of this. So don't take the fact that it's black because it starts on black and then fades in from. So, but all of these these different clips that we rendered are viewable inside of Premiere. They may not be viewable outside of Premiere, but that's not the point of the class. Okay. But because I'm going to load it in Premiere and watch it. Yeah. I mean, mostly it's like, you know, I also do have the codecs loaded on my Mac. So this Macintosh, which is what I grade on, has that software loaded. So I can watch DNX HD, Cineform, ProRes, all of that. I can watch it all just from launching it off the Finder. But for you guys, if you need to check your app, those exports, you can bring them up in Premiere and play them and verify that they're good. So again, I'll take a note for future generations so that they don't suffer the same indignancies. All right. Anything else with the first assignment? Larry.
You want us to load it on, say, whether or not we have it all or not?
Sure. Yeah. Just give me what you got. All right. Promise you, you know, what you guys provide will be fine. I guarantee you. I am my own worst critic when it comes to how I put you guys through this. Yeah. Yeah, if you could, the screenshot would be a helpful thing to add. Just with the project file and with the media files, it's fine. Well, for purposes of this, you don't need to put it in the project scaffold. But if you did want to put it in the project scaffold, that would certainly be nice. It would go under graphic sources probably. Okay. Or, I mean, graphic sources or even project exports could work as well. So either of those two, if you're really feeling strongly, I won't, again, not going to make a big deal out of it. All right. Need to move on. Oh, last thing. Yes, that's what I'm going to talk about next. All right. I haven't passed them out yet. Okay. So, speaking of which, what I wanted to do is I have 35 of these glorious USB flash drives. I'm going to just, for ease of, you know, for my own ease, I'm going to just go alphabetical unless somebody feels strongly. I mean, last year, because I had 30 students and 25 USB sticks, there was a scrimmage, and so that perpetrated through the whole semester. But we're not going to do it that way this year because I don't need to. I've got 35 of these things, and I don't need to get crazy. So when I call your name, if you come up, I will hand you. I'm going to basically just run down and assign these numbers, and I'll hand them to you, and you can load your assignment on them. So when you just so that you have a sense of what you're getting into here, I'm going to take a moment. I'm going to load one of these up on this. So this is and these will work on Windows or Mac. Okay, they're formatted that will work on either system. You'll see that it loads up with the name of this. This one is number 1, and this one actually says CS74.21C-01. Please don't rename them. If you rename them, then I just rename them back, and it'll be a thing. So on this, if you go and you look here, you'll see that there's nothing on it. It's empty. Okay. Every week, this thing is going to be empty. So anything you put on it this week, I take off of it, format it, and put it back in the binder. So there's no storing things on here except what you're turning in week after week. That is how we keep the treadmill moving. Okay. If you have, so that begs the next question. If you have more than one thing you're turning in for the week, what I would ask you to do is, and this is how we're going to get into this, into demoing how to hand these out, is if you can create a folder for each assignment. So you'd be like week 1 or week 2. You can do it that way. You can do it class 1. And we'll get to that. Don't you worry. 2. Okay. And then the next thing is that I want your last name on it. So Hall class 1. Okay. And then that's how I can keep it straight, because because the way that I normally do this is that I will load each of these drives into a separate folder on my grading system. But if I don't see your name anywhere associated with it, I have to go back to my little secret decoder ring to find out who you are, and that makes me grumpy. And do you really want me grumpy while I'm grading your stuff? You make the choice. The idea here, though, is that if you can put your last name on these, it will go a lot easier for both of us, and I will be able to keep straight what you're turning in, okay, and be able to, you know, appropriately give you credit for your work. So when time comes to put, say, a project in here like this, I'll just take the project file and drop it in here. So this might be the project file that I gave you or that you downloaded off of lynda.com for the homework that you'll be doing there. The important thing is that you need to put it in a format that I can see. So sometimes I'll ask you to put your last name, and then it's going to be the chapter and verse of the assignment. So sometimes there'll be more than one project file, more than one media file, or other things that you're working on. So each of them will be, make sure that your last name's on each of them, and that they're clearly talk about what that assignment is, whether that is, you know, chapter 4, you know, exercise 2, you know, like that, so that I can see what it'll say. Usually in the Canvas assignments, I talk about how to name things. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to ask so that I can address them. Okay. So now we have this lovely drive that has your last name, what you're turning in, and inside of that is the files and or media that I'm asking you to submit. Okay. Now I got to go reformat this. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to start handing these out. So for first, Heather, why don't you come up, and you get the lucky. Actually, I'm going to quickly bring up terminal. Yeah, come on up. It's all good. I know this is going to be the very interactive portion of the show. I know. Don't freak out. This is. I gotta unmount it so that it can actually. Okay, and then I'll just eject it. So now, if you look at it again, it's empty. Okay, so there you go. All right. All right. Alan. Cool. And then David after that.
Thank you.
Alexei. Julian. And Alex, did you come in?
Yeah.
Come on. So let's see. Julian?
Yep.
All right. Here you go, Alex.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. Logan. Celine Satora. Logan?
Thank you.
Celine? Satora? Ilana, Elliot Lane, and Lucas. Ilana, Elliot, Lucas, Q, Elliot Murphy, Heather, and Lariva. Lariva. Okay, so that is Elliot, right?
Yes.
Heather.
Thank you.
Okay. Evan, come on down. Wiley, Colin. There you go, sir.
Thank you.
Colin?
Yeah.
Wiley. Thank you. Almost there. All right, I'm looking at it. Quansiva. I get it? No? Quansiva. I'll get it. I swear. You know, hey, that's my third try. Come on. Naomi and Josh. There you go. And then Ben, why don't you come up? And then we'll have everybody have everything, and then I will. Okay. Oh, Josh, bring that back. That's Naomi's.
Thank you.
You get this one. Ben, you get that. All right. And then last but not least, but so you haven't done it this week, so turn it in next week. Okay. And I'll have it ready for you then. All right, cool. Phew, man. Okay, so what I would like you guys to do is, well, sit back and relax for a moment because I'm going to regale you with a brief story about audio. All right, so we did talk about this homework. We will talk about the semester projects later because I don't know that I'm ready to unleash it upon you yet. I'm going to basically do some final tweaks to it. So next week I will have it available for you. So, but what I will talk about is I will talk about the semester project, and then you'll have. So this is kind of a preview of what you'll be contending with. Again, using lynda.com as our text. This is from last year's lecture, so it's a little bit weird. Principles of sound design. We'll talk about Adobe Audition and using Audition for clip editing. We're also going to talk a bit more about Premiere in terms of the sound capabilities that Premiere has. Okay. All right. So semester project. This is it. The idea behind this class is to basically have you demonstrate the skills that you learn in the class by working on actual media. So the idea is this is a project that lasts all semester, and that you will be able to do. You'll be able to that, and it should be a project that has opportunities for you to demonstrate these skills. So the idea is that you have a project where the edit is completed. Okay, you don't need to add or remove frames from the film. You don't need to change any of the content itself, but that you are now dealing with a title sequence. So how you introduce the film, which is an opportunity for some visual effects work. You have color correction, which is because there are at least one clip in this film that I'm talking about that needs it. There's sound design, where you have the ability to add and or finesse sound into to enrich the environment. Sound mixing, where you have dialogue, you have music, and you're trying to find the right balance between them. You have motion graphics, and then you also opportunities for rotoscoping. We'll see about that. This bullet here where it says you're encouraged to use your own project, we're going to tweak this a little bit. I would like everybody to use the project that we're providing. If you have your own project that you want to work on as well to actually exercise these skills that you're learning in this class, you are able to do that. We will have, but from the point of view of, there are pieces in the semester project that I provide that actually will allow you the opportunity to demonstrate all of this. The good news is that the item that was missing from this was burning a DVD is not on here anymore. Okay, so yeah, if you don't have a project, obviously I have one. The project as it is was a short documentary that I created several years ago now, that has and it's at least it's a reasonably interesting documentary. Reasonably, it's about raw milk. Anybody know what raw milk is? These days, people know what raw milk is. 5 years ago, people didn't know what raw milk was. Not as much. And so in the production, when I produced it originally in Final Cut 7. Yeah. Kind of a little bit, yeah. It was like it was one of the last projects I did in Final Cut 7. And shortly after that, I started learning Premiere, and I really didn't look back. So as part of that, I also used Apple Motion for my motion graphics and visual effects. And in the process of doing this, in creating this class, I actually went back through and reformatted everything into Premiere, did After Effects comps of all of the motion graphics that I did and all of the visual effects, and it was much easier, and obviously a little more industry standard. So yeah. Anyway, that's the name of the project. I will hopefully have that ready to provide you next week. So definitely, if you don't have a hard drive with you tonight, you're going to want one next week, because this is going to be about 8 gigs of content you're going to download. Yes?
So since you're going to give this to us next week, is this going to be in Canvas, this outline, or anything that you give us regarding?
Yes. This should mirror the page in the week 0 module that talks about the semester project.
Okay.
Has a lot of this. I mean, I'm just hitting your head several times with this so that you don't go, but you never told us, because I've had classes tell me this, and I'm like, wait, no, I told you. So anyway, yeah, semester project, that's happening. How many of you guys have signed up for this, the Sonoma County Library deal? All right. How many of you guys need to know what the Sonoma County Library deal is? Okay. So the Sonoma County Library deal is where Sonoma County Library, sonomalibrary.org, has, if you have and I know I have it, it's in my wallet, I swear it is. If you have the library card for the Sonoma County Library, you can actually check out, there's my Clipper card. All right, that's in there somewhere. You can check out, and not only can you check out books, but you can log into lynda.com using just your library card number and the PIN that you create when you get your library card. Library cards are free for Sonoma County residents. So, you go to the main, I don't think the Guerneville branch by Cottingtown is open still. That's been under construction. So you have to go either downtown or to Healdsburg or to one of the other branches, if depending on where you are, Sebastopol, etc. That they can set you up with a card and a PIN, and then you are basically good to go. I was just logged in earlier this evening, so my one paranoid thing was that lynda.com was going to disappear from Sonoma Library, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So it is, and it's the entire library, all of the exercise files. You can watch any lynda.com video you want. So it's pretty impressive. The for the most part, the chapters and exercises that I'm currently planning on using are from these 4 courses. I may pull some different ones from different ones. As you know, and the funny thing is that the After Effects Essential Training for 2018 actually is done now in several different courses. So there's the basics, there's the sound, there's the motion graphics. So they've broken out the courses here into several modules separately. So what you'll find is that when we get to the After Effects portion of the program, I'm going to be furiously recalibrating stuff. But again, the good news is that you have more weeks of After Effects instruction in the class than was previously done. So at least 2 more weeks, maybe 3, depending. Because this class started a week late, it's a little, you know, we don't get that week back in the end of the semester, so it's like I might only have 16 weeks to stuff your heads full of this stuff. But I guarantee you that after 8 weeks of After Effects, your brains are going to be leaking, and it'll be a thing. Oh yeah, because that would have been heinous. Yeah, no, really. I don't know how I would have gotten through it. So let's talk about sound in film. When you talk about sound in film, and I don't mean to rehash old territory. I don't know if Brian covers this now in his production class here at the JC, but there's 3 basic categories of film sound. Okay, there's the talking, there's the music, and then there's everything else. Okay, so the talking is called dialogue. There's specifically in the industry, you do still hear reference made to these 2-letter abbreviations. Okay, so when you talk about dialogue, you might hear the term DX, and that is what dialogue, that means dialogue. Okay, so that's any speaking, any spoken words, probably not singing if it's synced to music, because music is kind of if it's like a musical, or if it's La La Land or something like that, how you would mix that might be separate for the musical numbers than for the talking parts. Second is sound effects, which would include things like, you know, outer space noises, like you would think, but also Foley, like footsteps on pavement, footsteps on dirt, body hits, you know, the sound of cars rolling away or coming to a halt, or planes and helicopters flying overhead. You get the idea. So sound effects are a pretty wide category of stuff, and I include what's called ambience. What you'll find in tonight in our brief tour of audition is that ambience, they treat ambience a little differently. So that 2-letter designation for sound effects is FX. Go figure. Third is music. The 2-letter designation for that is MX. Music obviously is background music in the scene. Sometimes it's practical music, you know, meaning that it's performed on camera while the cameras are rolling. Or the musical score for a film. So all of those count as part of this. Okay. Are there any questions about how these are chopped up into 3 categories? Okay. Yeah. Lariva, you with me?
I am.
All right. Good. So a key part of sound, especially in dialogue, is not. I don't know how many of you guys how many of you guys have taken the production classes here? And does Brian talk about room tone?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, good. All right. I like to hear that. So room tone is, for those of you who aren't or haven't taken the production classes, room tone is basically defined as the sound a room makes when nothing's happening in it. So if it was possible for me to be quiet, long enough for you to hear the noises in the room, what would you hear? Hear the air conditioning vent. There's a wicked AC hum happening off of one of these ballasts up here. So it's kind of a bzzz sort of thing up here. You get the sound of the computers doing whatever the computers are doing. So when there's no dialogue and it's not absolute silence, meaning that there's no sound whatsoever, it's the sound a room makes when nobody's doing anything. How do you actually capture it? Have you guys actually captured room tone?
Yes.
How would you do it? Tell me.
We would just we would have the entire crew just sit still for a second, and then with the Zoom recorder, we will just record the room.
How long?
About a minute.
About a minute. Would you have, so the key question is, you would want to have every piece of equipment that is turned on, with the exception of red cameras, because they're just jet engines with an image sensor on them. So you'd want to have every piece of equipment, whether that's lights or other practical things that are on in the room, you'd want them turned on and running. So because the idea is that you want the environment to be as close to how it was filmed as it is, and you want to have all the bodies in the room because the sound of the room changes with the amount of body mass, and people's bodies are dampening the normal echoes that you get from walls and furniture and ceilings and everything else. So that's why it's like you put all the crew in the room, all the crew that normally in the room. You wouldn't like say, hey, everybody, pile in. But you'd get as close to a production environment as you can. You want to get about a minute of it. That's fantastic. 30 seconds is kind of like the bare minimum. Yeah, so everybody who's in the room, and boom op or sound recorder will mic the room. Generally speaking, you'd key it off with, you'd slate it as room tone, and then and what room you're in or what scene generally you're shooting. Also, you generally would do for room tone, you do it on a particular day. So if you came back the next day, you'd get room tone the next day as well. The editor will thank you, because if anything changed in that room, the room tone from one day to the next can be different, especially if it's windows and there's outdoor traffic and other stuff. So, or if it's raining, that might be another one where it's like if the weather changes outside and the sound of the outdoors, if it's not completely soundproof, you'll get some of that in the room tone. All right, so let's dive in now. We've spent some time doing this, or do you guys need a break? It's about break time. So if you guys want, we can take about 5 minutes and reset, get yourselves ready, and then we're going to dive in and get practical. Okay? Okay. Yes. Once you're done, bring them up and stack them right here on this corner. Mm-hmm.
So I sent an email to them because I was having a hard time. And the exact same question I asked about the columns I posted.
Okay. That's, yeah, I didn't have time to get to them this week because of all of the food, but yes, you're doing fine. Generally speaking, for the questions that the required questions for each week, you'll submit them as your answer in Canvas. So if we go to student view,
I did that. I just
yeah.
didn't know if that type of question was okay, like a technical. Like you run into a technical.
Well, yeah, I generally don't. I generally try to. I try not to have, troubleshooting questions be part of it. But if it pertains to, so it's like, I don't know. I'm like I said, it's this week is kind of rough and ready from the fact that I'm trying to recalibrate this from last semester. So when you come in here and you're going to answer this, of course, this quiz is now locked, so it's not going to let me answer it. But you would you'd click up here to answer submit an answer, and which is your question. So it's like, you know, based on the reading or homework. So it's like, what can I do? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm looking at this and not looking up here. I'm like, oh yeah, of course. If you look on the screen, you'll see. No, you won't. Don't mind me. All right, so I gotta pull up my little magic wand. Okay. So if we go down to courses, spring. Yes.
I sent you a message
Mhm.
on Canvas. There was a problem with my drive, and like.
You mean your own hard drive? Oh, okay.
So I submitted my homework on the Canvas. Not Canvas. I'm sorry, the server.
Oh, on the server.
Yeah, is that okay?
You mean instead of on this?
Yeah.
Oh, this, you're having trouble with this?
No, I'm having trouble with my.
Oh, with your own. So yeah, that's fine
Okay.
for this week. I've generally speaking though, you're going to be
Yeah, I
uploading
know.
like massive stuff, and you'll crater this poor
I
server.
think I
But
just
yes.
need to change my drive.
Okay. So let's look at student view modules. And I think that I'm so wound up. So yeah, you get to this, and then you would click up here to submit your answer, submit your question, and that's fine. It's that's where I would go to find your questions, and then curate them for the Q&A section.
Double check. So just like the screenshot and then the 2 video files.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's fine. I can make it work from that.
was just telling him about it today. Give me, and then read. Oh yeah. Mine's a little bit shit. It's been so sick. I've been telling you. You've been saying lots of things. All of the areas burgers. What is sick? I just think what is sick? Like new shit was
Did you want a screenshot of the project folder or the project folder in Premiere?
Yeah, it was the project folder in the file system. So whether that's in Mac or on Windows, how you would, just show me
You don't
that.
want it like the top of that screen there. You don't want it out of the project window.
Well, in Macs, it's real easy to do because you have the ability to just kind of, you can kind of spin these down, but in Windows, you don't have that ability. So I don't know which one you're using.
Windows.
Okay, so in Windows, what you would do is you would have to create new windows for these.
Right. You don't have to. You don't have to
But
do it
yeah,
in
the
Premiere
idea
Pro,
would be
though,
that-
right?
No, you don't do
that's-
this in Premiere
yeah.
because in Premiere we already know what it looks like. It's,
Right.
You got bins and other stuff that's
Right.
already there. So the idea
Okay.
is to
You want
to
it
move
off
up is to
off the
see
file
what
file
see the
structure.
file structure on the disk
Got it.
without having you upload 8 gigs of stuff to me because that just takes a lot of time. Yeah, trust me, I have all the original footage. I gave it to you. So.
wait, was it text?
No, we've been around the line.
I like that little mat. I like that.
Yeah.
I see those things.
You treat everybody like that.
No, it's just like.
We all kind of feel like that. We're all the business.
Oh yeah.
And you already taken that.
Yeah.
So you reset if you were gonna take those classes.
So Peter, do you need an ad code? All right, let's do that. Let me get this situated. So
No, it's not. Because also just do whatever they think. And but each time and so I was I did sound and editing.
That should work. I don't know if you have any problems.
Yeah, I feel good about that, but I think
Okay.
That's what I did. Are you doing this for a degree? A certificate? For what?
no, I have.
You talked to Brian?
I communicated with Brian, and I got off of the media page. I think I could. How out of order I was, but that taking those other classes, and then I had
Right.
so that I could get most of that class.
Well, I'm thinking in here. I'm in my, this is my last semester, and I took, journals on 55 and the multi-camera production class last semester. This semester, I did maybe 20. So, really, every person not by what they say. Based on the fact that he's the one who exposed the classes, and he'll tell you that prerequisite and that it won't just be unique.
Okay. When you're ready, we'll get back to business. Okay, y'all ready? No?
Yes.
Not all ready. Okay. Some of you are almost ready. Cool. All right. So getting back to this. So I want to take a moment. How many of you guys have seen these little postcards? So how many of you guys have gone to some of the cinema series showings? They're worth it, aren't they? These are basically, if you have not, I strongly encourage you to take the opportunity. So I do know that they is it the 28th? I can't tell what the date they've got in here, but so one of the things that they do is that they actually several points a year they bring in the directors of the films to discuss the films, and these are the ones that you absolutely don't want to miss if you can possibly make it out there on Wednesday evenings down at the Petaluma campus. I mean, the first one, which is, well, actually, this is tomorrow. Yeah, so the first one's tomorrow. Beautiful movie. Next one is Three Billboards, which is, knocking on the door for Best Picture. If you have not seen it, you should go see it there because they discuss it. And if you want to figure out why movies tell such great and interesting stories, Mike Traina is a great lecturer when it comes to this stuff. So I definitely encourage you guys. PetalumafilmAlliance.org is the website that you can go to. It's on the front of this little postcard. If you don't have one, yeah, they're really fantastic for and $5 if you're not in the class to just go watch, and it's yeah, I like it.
If you have a cup card, it's free with a little sticker on the back.
Yep, it does say that free admission with Cub Card Plus.
And also, give extra credit if you go
I don't actually give extra credit, but what I do, so, and I should, because part of it is but what I do, the reason why I don't or haven't to this point is that it, right, and but it's also how to tie that into post-production. I haven't figured that out. So as far as the curriculum for this course, it's a little hand wavy. I don't know. I do strongly encourage it though. If you ever have the opportunity to go talk to or go to the ones the screenings with the directors in attendance in conversation, those are the ones that you will extract the most possible benefit from watching, because not only will you see the movie and appreciate it for what it is, but you'll be able to sometimes even pose questions to the director about why they made the choices they made in the film. And that can be hugely valuable to any filmmaker to, depending on your tastes and preferences. So looks like there's 2 directors in attendance. There's a third one with a guest presenter, which will probably be another valuable one in April. Normally, and this is another one of these, this year they're skipping it again, is normally for the Sebastopol Documentary Film Festival, one of the films there would be on the cinema series. But the trouble is that spring break for the JC happens the same week that the film festival is. So that's great from the point of view of you'll have free time to go watch films at the Documentary Film Festival, which you will get extra credit for doing, but not as far as the cinema series, which is, again, it is hugely valuable. So check it out.
Wait a minute.
Yes. Wait a minute. What?
Getting extra credit for the Basketball Film Festival having to do with the fact that
I'm the tech director? Yes.
Okay.
It has a lot to do with
Let's make
that.
that clear.
If I see you at the festival, I go, "Hey, you made it!" And I go, "Oh, that person's awesome. I'm gonna think they're awesome." And so, yes, no, it's totally has to do with the fact that I work that festival, and so that's, Mike. I'm sure I'll have words with Mike Trainer later. He'd be like, "Why are you putting down?" I'm not.
How if I get your, if I do, give you an autograph?
Give you an autograph?
Yeah. Just like give you a picture and then you sign for it.
I sign. Oh, it's like I'll just hand out my photo to all of you, and you got to find me at the festival.
Exactly.
Wow, that's an interesting kind of. Actually, no. You know what it would be? It would be get a selfie with me. That's what it's gonna be. So there you go. So easy peasy. All you gotta do is bring your phone. Yeah. Yes. So you work at the Rialto? Well, I could talk to Chris and see if he'll back your play. I know Melissa, I know Marianne, so we can work some of that. But if you're working the weekend of the festival, that's kind of hard because you're gonna be like doing all the shoveling popcorn and all that other garbage. So well, that's, hey, there's a lot of shoveling when it comes to film. So no, there was another question. No other questions? All right, let's move on. Okay, so just as a reminder, it is under the modules, week 0 module, semester long resources. The last one on that list is a semester project, and this is basically what I lifted. This goes into much more detail, as you can see. It tells you what I expect to see that you've demonstrated. Okay. Including web encoded video, what to turn in, and so on. So do have a look at all of that. You'll be, you won't regret it.
Do you encourage using your own project or not?
So yeah, I know the wording has changed. So I'm going to have you use my project. If you want to use your own project, you'll have an opportunity towards the end of the semester to put that effort in. You're always encouraged to use your own projects to make them better by using the skills you get out of this class, obviously. But in terms of how to ensure that you guys can demonstrate the skills in a form that I can look at and go, I see you demonstrate the skills. That's why we've decided that using my project is as and don't get me wrong, it is not my ego involved in this, because trust me, if there's anything I don't want to see is my film 23 times every semester. Okay, it's the last thing I want to do is watch my film over and over and over again, going, yes, they did this. Okay, because
I know the original footage. That's that part of the deal.
that is part of the deal. What you will provide, and again, we'll go into this. We'll touch on this again next week when I actually have the project ready for you guys to pick up. But what you will turn in is usually what you've added to the project. Whether that is if you've cleaned up any audio files, you'll need to provide the cleaned up audio files. I will probably have a series of, and we'll see how this goes, a series of screenshots that you'll provide of different effects that you've applied and other techniques that you've, because part of it is, if I can look at the end result, in many cases, I can tell what you've done. Sometimes it's not quite so easy. And I used to say, just send me the project file. But as soon as you send me the project file, then I get to relive the horrors of linking media again and again and again. So, I'm trying to streamline this. It's like I can look at a screenshot of an effect that you've applied, look at the end result, and go, yes, that's what it looks like, or sounds like, for that matter. And that's really where we start to run into this when we get into the talking about how audio work is done. Audio work in Audition is sometimes destructive. And so, meaning that you modify the file, or that you modify it in a way that is not reproducible easily. So in order to demonstrate that, I'm going to be bolstering the assignment for this week to include a couple of screenshots that you're going to give me of the workspace in Audition where you, and the plugin that you're going to use, and we'll go through some of that tonight so that you have a sense of it. All right, I want to move on because time's a wasting. So we've only got about an hour before I completely run out of gas and my throat's completely run raw, and you guys are probably going to be all like heavy-lidded. So if you haven't already, why don't you go ahead and open the I'm going to close this project and not save it, and then I'm going to reopen it. So the week 2 in-class project in Premiere. Okay. And what you're going to see is, you should see something much like this. Okay. See, look, it loaded without having to relink media and everything. It's amazing. All right. What I wanted to kind of get into is when you look at the audio facilities, and this is where I will turn off the lights in here so that you can see what I'm doing. All right. No sleepy time. When you're looking in the workspace, how many of you guys have used workspaces in the new Creative Cloud for Premiere? There's some really cool preset looks for the arrangement of windows and other things. I'll go through them really briefly, but you have assembly, which is really where you're importing and logging media into a project, where you're building and you're starting to do rough layout of content. So you'll be taking, that's why your bins are front and center, or not front and center, but they take over the entire left side of the project window. You just have the program viewer and the sequence, or your timeline and your toolbars. So the idea is that you're going to be taking content from here and dropping it in there. You're not going to be, hang on. Every year that makes me crazy. So you're not going to be previewing content in here, because first and foremost, you don't have a source viewer. Okay. So the idea is that this is where you would go to quickly put content out on a timeline. Editing is the familiar, 4-pane approach. Your source viewer and additional ones over here, your program, your timeline, and your project bin, media browser, and so on. This is also where you would find effects in Premiere. Most notably, I remember that the thing that vexed me the most moving from Final Cut to Premiere was that in Final Cut 7, the effects were up on the menu, and Premiere there down here in this pane. Then you have color. So we will talk about color later on. But the thing to get from this is that you have this notion of this lumetri color control, which now kind of has taken all the oxygen out of the room for the Adobe application stack. So I don't know if they've brought lumetri color over to Photoshop yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if they've done something. I mean, it's very Lightroom-like in its approach to how to do color in video. You have the effects tab, which basically now pulls the effects pane over here so that you can see all of the bits. It does leave your, you know, the effects controls is over here. You do have the source viewer if you want, but your effects are going to basically be, you know, brought over here so that you can keyframe and do. You have lots of room for doing any animation moves that you're going to move there. Your project pane gets a little less real estate. And audio. So audio is what we're going to spend time with today. I'm not really going to go any further over it than this. So your project pane is over here on the left. You've got this pane, which is taken up with the source viewer, but also these two mixers. And we'll talk about what the function of each of those are in just a moment. You do have effects controls as well. And then you program your timeline. And then this over here, this is the other thing we're going to talk about tonight. So when you talk about how Premiere is rigged, you have the notion, you have two sets of mixers here, and you should take a look at them if you have a chance. So when you look at them, you're going to see, you know, you have two audio channels, and they do correspond to these tracks. Okay, so these do correspond to these tracks. However, what you'll notice is that if there's no media actually in this, so let's actually come over here. We're going to show you all of the audio tracks right now. I'm going to use Option Plus to expand the audio. So you have in here audio 1, audio 2, and then a master. Audio 1 right now, if at this point where the playhead is, okay, does not have any media loaded in it. There's no clip present in that. It's just blank. So if you're looking at the clips, since there's no clip there, if you go to the clip mixer, you'll see that this track is disabled. Okay? So audio 1, you can't do anything with. You can't, there's no controls, there's no pans, there's no volumes, there's nothing. You could mute it. You can do that, but the idea is that you can't control anything there. Whereas with audio 2, you can see that you do have all of those controls are lit up and usable. When if you put the playhead over where there's media, suddenly this audio 1 springs to life. So the audio clip mixer is really only for modifying the behavior of audio clips that are under the playhead. Okay. So if you were to come in here and, you know, because some of you probably are aware of how to deal with, you know, modifying the volume levels of a particular audio track or audio clip by just raising and lowering the volume slider, you'll notice that as you're moving this one, you're actually moving it in the mixer as well. So if you move this one, they correlate to each other. Okay. But what you don't see here is that you can also be looking at the clip keyframes for panning and for come on, where are we looking? Show clip keyframes. So you have a couple of options here in terms of what keyframes you're watching. So you could switch this, and now you're actually looking at the pan control, which is this control up here. But it's only for this one track. This track is still volume control. So you see that it can get a little confusing, when you're looking at automation on a clip-by-clip basis, what that line represents is a little bit subject to interpretation. Whereas if you come over here, you can see that wherever you set this is, it'll tell you as soon as the playhead's over it, it will tell you exactly what is going on with the individual clip controls. So these settings here also correlate to the effect controls under these points here, okay? So when you look under effect controls and audio effects, you have, and we'll talk a little bit more about what effects are, but you'll see that these effects are set here, and they are for this piece of media, which is this file right here, is set to 1.9 dB of boost and 6.8 to the right, whereas right here you see that it's 6.8 to the right and about a 1.9 boost. So you can always come in here, and if you want to reset things, you can always just set it to 0, and it resets that clip back to its default. If for any reason you wanted to clear the settings on this as well, you have the ability to do that using remove attributes. Usually it would be, you would just remove these attributes here, and it resets the clip to what it was originally. So you can come over here and clear any effects at all or audio attributes so that you're back to a vanilla state. Audio clip mixer, fun times. Now, you also have this next one, which is called the audio track mixer. Now, any idea what the difference here might be? Any guesses? Sure. No?
So
What?
there's like, I don't know, maybe a song or something that's down there, right, on audio too. But
Yep.
you have like a different song after it, where the track makes all the clips on the one.
You're kind of on the right track. Not quite there, though. Do you have another guess? That is basically it. So when you talk about what we talked about, the clip mixer, you're really just modifying the attributes of a single media clip in a timeline. Audio track mixer, you're dealing with the entirety of this audio track here or this audio track here. Okay, so when you see audio 1, you'll see that audio 1 has is right here, and it has all of this additional stuff that's been pumped on there. It has a multi-band compressor, a vocal enhancer. These are effects built into Premiere that you can add to the audio tracks or to the tracks. So if you remove these, you'll notice that, and the other thing to take away from this is that you have audio 1, audio 2, and then you have master down here, but there's no audio clips down here. That's why master doesn't show up in the audio clip mixer. When you go to the audio track mixer, you'll see that you have these slots, okay? And these slots are basically like rack effects on a big mixer board that you would be working with in a recording studio. We don't go into too much talking about what sends or buses here, but you can do some pretty complicated routing of audio inside of Premiere by default. Okay, the things that Premiere provides are pretty impressive here. That they do have a wide variety of effects for audio dynamics, and so whether it's dynamics processing, which would be like audio compression, which is not the same as like compressing to make smaller, but just compressing the dynamic range of audio. You have delays, you have equalizers, whether they're graphic or parametrics. You have all sorts of modulation. We'll talk about this one in just a second, reverb, imagery, and so on. When it comes down to noise reduction, you have a couple of choices here. they're not particularly sophisticated choices. So when you work on some audio bits are not going to be particularly, so these effects are not going to be particularly capable of dealing with difficult audio problems. All right. But when you do have them applied, so you'll notice right now that I've stripped all of those effects out and it's kind of flattened the audio. The music is kind of fighting with the dialogue here. The other thing is, how many of you guys have seen this before? What this is, this has to do with the track actually. But when you're dealing with automating a particular track for across all clips, you can choose how you present your automation. So when you're dealing with automation for audio, this is going to include things like recording slider moves up and down as you play back. If you're trying to work two pieces of audio together, and that's what I have here with the track. You can view when you expand these tracks to enough, again using Option or Alt plus and minus on your keyboard. So Option minus or Option plus, Alt minus, Alt plus will expand and contract the audio tracks. But you'll see that there's this keyframes button or indicator. You can choose what kind of keyframes you're going to show. Right now, it's the volume control for the overall audio mix. So, and I believe I have to do this in order for you to fully see what it has in mind. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scroll through here to show you that what you're seeing is, what you will be seeing here is, watch this slider as we play audio. So it's automatically being moved down, okay?
So those keyframes represent the slider
moving up and down for the track, okay? So this is automation of the track that you can do inside of Premiere. How you do that in Premiere is relatively straightforward. You can actually, it's right up here under automation mode. Okay, so you have, and you can do this on yours if you want to follow along, is if you have the audio track mixer shown, you probably want to give yourself a little more room so that you can see what's happening here, and then try to bring up the, so again, the way I've situated my sequence is I've eliminated, I've moved all of the video tracks. I've kind of shoved them up to the top. I've tried to get the audio 2 showing overall, and then bring this down so that you can kind of see what you're doing. So you might need to be moving this scroll bar here so that you can kind of observe the keyframes here. If you don't see these keyframes, if what you're seeing is this, then just come over to Show Keyframes, click, and go to Track Keyframes Volume. And it's going to show you the keyframes that drive this slider right here. Now, if you wanted to change this, if you wanted to rewrite this, you can change this mode right here. You can do off, which means that it ignores all, it ignores the automation. You can choose read, which is the default, which means that it'll read these keyframes and set the volume slider appropriately. You can do latch. Now, latch is where it will basically overwrite this with whatever the current setting is. So if I were to start playing this now, and I just grab it, it's going to stay where I put it now. And then when I stop, you'll see that it rewrote. So it started following the automation that was there, but as soon as I touched the slider, it said, oh, that's where you want it to be. So this is, latch is going to be one of these where you're going to ride that slider up and down all over again, or you're going to stop playback when you're satisfied with what the changes that you've made. So if I undo that, you'll see that we'll try it again. So I'm gonna.
You're a Sonoma County's first nonprofit art community. We're a community of artists and makers.
So I'm like being severe.
Love sharing things with each other. Camille was started out with a desire to build a creative together all the amazing talent that we have.
Okay. So now you'll see that it's very exaggerated, but I shut off the sound entirely and then brought it way back up and down. So this is the by hand method of automating what we call audio ducking. Okay. Premiere has a better way of doing this. Audition has a much better way of doing this now. But the idea is that this is how audio engineers used to basically try to blend music with dialogue that are, and they're competing for your ears. So you don't want the music to drown out what's being said, and you also don't want it to disappear entirely. So, okay, so automation, it's fun. These digital audio workstations have had this capability forever. So this is how generally it's easy to add keyframes to how you change volume and other effects for a given track. Yes. Latch has been there since 2017, hasn't it? I thought Latch was there. I thought Wright was the new one. All right, but anyway, so I believe that Wright will. Well, I don't know. I'm not sure if there is any difference. But now, when you go back, once you finish with Wright, it switches to touch mode. Whereas if you are in Latch, it stays there. So touch mode, for just to complete the trifecta here, is it will follow the automation, and then if you make a change, it'll try and kind of go back to where you were doing. So you see that as soon as I do that, it starts to drop again. So it's like you're struggling against the. So it can make a big mess of this, but I was being a little exaggerating with it. So if you want to just bump something a little bit while it's playing and you just want to kind of lift it a little bit, you can grab the slider and move it around, and it will change just those keyframes, and then it will resume reading the automation that's there. Whereas Latch, and I believe Wright is the same way from that perspective, is that it will overwrite whatever's there with whatever. As soon as you touch this, it's figuring that you're overwriting the keyframes that are there. Okay.
Question?
Answer.
Are a lot of these tools that you're showing us, are they all new for 2018?
No, these have been part of Premiere for a long time, but many people don't. When they're working in finishing a project, you don't always understand. Oftentimes you will run into situations where you'll want to keyframe the volume of something to kind of dip it underneath some speaking part, and this could be with narrative films. It doesn't have to be with documentaries or with commercial pieces like this. It's just, you're blending multiple modes here, music and dialogue, and you just want to make sure that one's not overpowering the other necessarily. Okay, so but these tools are very well, they're very well defined. All of the industry editing apps abide by this to one extent or another. Final Cut 10 being the notable exception because Apple does it Apple's way, which makes me crazy, but that's another matter. Their old applications used to follow this particular strategy.
It's just up to this point in A and B, we didn't really go into sound or audio like this. So it's used more than for finishing.
Yeah.
And these tools than the other types of editing.
Right. Yes, because when you look at how let me think about when you look at how a project goes together, and this keyframe here looks ridiculous now, but How do you know? How do you strike a balance between two audio tracks in an edit? How would you do that now? Without knowing about what you know from tonight. But how would you do that?
Well, what we did before is with the pen tool is just doing the same thing that you're doing automated, just like by hand.
Okay.
Just by what we're hearing, try to
So,
bring down the sound.
Sure.
So
You'd
that
use the
it's
pen
not-
tool and you would come in and you'd add keyframes and then just kind of move things around, right?
Exactly.
So
what I-
this is just a more organic way of making that happen. It's a little more. It looks kind of chunky and weird when you see it played out for you. But if you want smooth transitions from one to another, where you don't have to without having to go in and add those keyframes with the pen tool one after another, the automation tools that they have in the audio mixer and the track mixer are particularly helpful in that
They
respect.
have curvy lines as opposed to the straight lines that we pen tool. I don't see.
Well, no, the pen tool really only has it doesn't have, we don't have a notion of, how to change that to a different type of keyframe. And we do talk about that later, but for audio, yeah, it's not quite as sophisticated as, say, when we get into easing things for Premiere in terms of some of the motion keyframing, or definitely when we get into After Effects. Okay. All right. So the idea here is that when you're looking at any particular, I'm going to zoom these back out real quick. So when you're looking at any particular project, you would probably would want to have this. That wasn't very good. All right. So now you can see that I actually paid some attention to what I was doing, and so you'll see that that curve where the motion is a little more organic in shape is easier to achieve with the automation tools than it is with just using the pen tool to keyframe things. All right, but fair observation. Okay. Yes. Yes, we're going to talk about that just now. Yep. Okay. So, this is the capability that comes with this. I briefly want to touch on, because we'll talk about it in Audition as well, is the notion of the essential sound panel. Okay, this is something that's akin to Lumetri color, but for sound. If you come into the project and notice that we only have 2 audio tracks, so this will be mostly easy, is that you have the speaking parts here in audio 1. If you just click with your select, make sure you got the selection tool, click and drag to select all of those, you'll see that it shows assign an audio type to the selection. And you have 4 choices. Notice that these choices correspond to those 3 buckets, with the exception of ambience, because the way that Adobe's applications treat ambient sounds separately from sound effects. Okay, so here we're talking about, this is where my friend Dana is speaking, so we'll click on dialogue for that. Okay, as soon as you do that, this panel kind of lights up for you. So why don't you guys do that now? So go into the sequence. If you need to reset this, you can reset this to the save layout. If you have if your sequence looks like this, you'll be able to just come in, select just the dialogue, and then you'll see that it says, you know, it's going to look like this. It's going to say assign an audio type. You're going to select dialogue, and now you have all of these options available to you. Essentially, the other thing I want you to do is to do the same thing for the music. If you just click on the music track and come over here and click music, you'll see that you have another set. All right. So when it comes to essential, the essential sound is usually, this is going to be, these controls are going to affect whatever clips you have selected. So if you only want to modify this clip right here, that's what you would be, that's the changes you would be making here. So if you say you wanted to auto match the loudness of all of your clips that are selected, you can select them all, come over here, click auto match, and it's basically going to make them all uniformly loud to a loudness specification. This is why this panel is useful for filmmakers, okay? Especially for those of you that might have sound crews that record dialogue at all sorts of different levels, is that this will uniformly apply the target loudness of what's called -23 LUFS. And LUFS is a loudness unit. It's not exactly like decibels in the way you've talked about gain in the past, but and I don't want to go into more detail than that, but we will see that again when we get to audition. Okay. You also have repair. These are the noise plugins available in Premiere, so they're not particularly challenging. But you do have those options. You can add or apply these effects to fix easy audio problems. You have clarity, which is this group right here, which includes dynamics, EQ, and enhancing speech. So say we wanted to run a audio enhancer. You'll notice as soon as I do that, the color of this, we don't really go into this too much in the class. We used to do this a bit more, but when you look at clips inside of a sequence in Premiere, this little icon here tells you a lot of what's going on in that clip. So if you click on enhance speech and male, what you'll notice is that for these effects, or for these clips, you're actually adding audio effects, okay? So the audio effect is a vocal enhancer. That's what this does when you add this. If I turn this off, you'll see that goes away. And if I click it back, it comes back. So all you're doing here is you're applying effects automatically, okay? So it's an easier workflow to deal with good, core audio pieces here. And I encourage you guys to explore that further. When you get to working with music, you have a fewer options here. You do have some presets, but you have a loudness, which will basically go and change the loudness profile of the entire audio clip to a different standard, -25, which is quieter than the dialogue. And then you'll have the ability to duck. Let's now, because we're running out of time, and I want to get this in your heads before we leave here. The whole point of this is to help you kind of get your audio projects into decent shape before you need to do anything further with them. I don't normally like to encourage moving projects around this way, but let's see if there's you can actually now take a sequence like this and you can send it to Adobe Audition to be edited. And what it will, the latest dynamic linking thing, and I have a whole talk about the evils of Adobe's dynamic linking, which you will see. But I will demonstrate it here for you so that you can kind of get a sense of it. The notion of audio work in Premiere, and in fact with most editors, is one where you're going to take the media, you're going to extract the audio from your project, you're going to move it over to your digital audio workstation, in this case Audition, do things to it, and then you're going to export what they call stubs and bring them back. And stubs are, and we'll talk about how that all works, but stubs are basically like you just record from the beginning of the sequence to the end for each audio track. So when we do this, you can actually, and go ahead and do this, is where you can select, just make sure the sequence is selected, go to the File menu, go to Edit menu, Edit in Adobe Audition, and click Sequence. Now, in this case, it wants to move it to a default folder somewhere on your desktop. You can, part of that is because we did it, since we loaded it, the project here, it's going to try and create this Audition interchange folder. But for now, yeah, you can leave it there. You can rename it something else if you want to call this audio work. And then you're going to send the entire sequence. You can send the video through it so that you can see the video in Audition if that's what you want to do. And then you have this interesting group here that talks about transfer information to Audition. You can transfer audio clip and audio track effects directly to Audition to work there so that you don't have to redo them. It used to be that when you move things into Audition from Premiere, you actually would export what was called an XML file or an OMF file that you would then import into Audition, and then you'd have to reapply all of your effects, all of your fades, all of the other stuff that you may have already put into Premiere. So what you'll notice is that this animation here, this track keyframing, will transfer when we open this. And then down here at the bottom it says Open in Adobe Audition. We click OK. It's going to launch Audition right now, and then bring it in. So if you'd like to follow along, I definitely encourage you to do that without too much trouble. It says, hey, welcome, learn how to use this. Well, that's what we're here to do. So you'll see that now we've got, you'll notice that we've actually been pulling a Premiere project is what's open here. This is not normally what Adobe Audition works in. But it is a multi-track project, and it has all of my dialogue and all the music, and it should have all of, I gotta remember what I'm doing here in terms of showing me the keyframes. Let's see if we can get in the. Nope. Well, actually, I'm gonna skip through this because I want to get you to show you this part. Essentially, when you come in here, you'll notice that, remember, we had enabled speech enhancement in Premiere, and it's set up here as it was in Premiere, but it's open in Audition. So it pulls all of those settings across for you. This is a helpful way to get started in this. Once you start to work in this, though, you'll want to save this off as a proper Audition multi-track file. You're welcome to do that, but so you just go Save As, and when you save it, it's going to be saving as what's called an SESX, which is a session XML file. All right. So that's the notion of the essential sound. I wanted to show that to you. It's kind of like training wheels for audio engineering, but I think that where you guys are at, it's a useful first step to get your toes wet with audio effects and audio engineering from that perspective, because it makes it easy to do things like dynamic compression, EQ, and vocal enhancement across the board, and uniformly setting loudness for these categories of whether it's dialogue, music, sound effects. And so now what I want to switch to is I'm going to open one of the other files. So if we go into the desktop where you downloaded the Audition folder, I want you to open up one of these. Let's open up Randy Reed's Merch Lab with Hum. This will be fun. So when you open this up, we switched. We're no longer looking at a multi-track project, which is still open over here, but the workspace over here is just a single waveform. So, and of course I lost it once I opened it. So let's go back. Here it is.
Which one is this? Randy?
I'm opening Randy Reed's Merch Lab with Hum. So what I did was I actually... So if you're in Adobe Audition, it's easier to open it that way. Just Command or Control O, and then you find it here. It should be under your desktop where you loaded that. Why is it showing me this? I don't want to see that. All right. You saw that there's a Premiere folder that we were working with earlier, and here's a variety of WAV files that I provided you to play with tonight. All right. So if you play this back, I apologize in advance. Oh, it's not. There we go.
Shadow cuts. It is frequently at the edges of things that we learn most about the middle. Ice and steam can reveal more about the nature of water than water alone ever could.
All right, so this
Wow,
is me in my most amazing voiceover, giving you guys a dose of Walter Murch's In a Blink of an Eye. How many of you have read this book? Well, Evan shakes his hand. You have? It's a good book, isn't it?
I'm reading it.
Oh, you're reading it. Very good. So if you are reading it, then you should. If you have not read it, you should read it. Okay. In the Blink of an Eye. It's by Walter Murch, M-U-R-C-H. It's not a very long book, but it is really, really good. And he was the editor for Francis Ford Coppola. He did Apocalypse Now. So, you know, little things like that. And it's a series of lectures he did that were transcribed into a book. They're fascinating. So I strongly encourage you to go read it. This was like the first few lines or first few paragraphs from the first chapter. So right now I'm going to loop on. So by coming down here inside of Adobe Audition, you'll notice the user interface is a little bit, it's kind of familiar. It's got a media browser. It's got a project pane, but the project panes don't really correspond directly to Premiere. You have this weird waveform window, which kind of looks like a timeline. It's not as, it doesn't kind of correlate directly to what you work with in Premiere. But, you know, most of the commands you're used to in Premiere work here. So if you want to zoom in, plus or minus or equals, depending on your point of view. So, and the thing I want to do is I want to just play for you the noise that's kind of underneath this, okay? You guys hear it? It's room tone, but it's also been mixed in with some nasty 60 hertz hum. All right, and you're hearing my breath. You're hearing my breathing going in, so that's kind of a weird... that's creepy. Yeah, it kind of sounds like a steam engine almost, right? As like somebody on a respirator. Not creepy at all. Nope, not at all. Okay, no creepy here. Nope, don't mind me. Okay, so how would you get rid of something like that? There's a couple of options you can do. The cheap solution would be to use an EQ to try and knock that out, because if it's a 60 hertz hum, you actually have a good chance of eliminating it using just simple tools like EQ. When that doesn't work, you often have what they call broadband sound, which is like white noise or background noise. Could be cars, could be city, could be like traffic noise almost. It could be air conditioning vents. It could be refrigerator motors. All of those things actually are not as simple as a hum, but are worth, if you want to clean up your audio, becomes something that you want to try out. So in this case, I mixed my lav audio with this this AC hum, but we're going to try and remove it using a couple of the effects that are built in here. So notice with Audition, effects are actually on the menu. You have a lot of effects that you've seen in Premiere. So you have amplitude and compression, which includes dynamics, dynamics processing, limiter, multi-brand compressor. These are all effects that you have available to you in Premiere. You also have diagnostics. There's a new effect here for if you overdrive your audio, you record your audio too hot and it distorts. You have they do have a rudimentary declipper, which will try to reconstruct your audio from overdriven digital distortion. You have filter and EQ, which in this case, we'll try this right now. So we're going to put a filter, a notch filter on this. And what I want, so what you'll notice is that it actually comes by default with a 60 hertz and harmonics removal preset. Okay, so and when you apply this, you're going to see hopefully that it's going to make a difference. Did it make a difference? Not so much. All right. Now, well, in this case, it's just a notch filter. It's just using EQ to basically try to affect that audio. So you can be a little more savage about it. You can come in here and over 50 hertz or 60 hertz, do some savage like okay minus 70 dB. Well, that might be a little crazy, but let's. Not enough savage, too savage. So if we do like 100, maybe okay, maybe it's 200, maybe it's 1,000. No, you can't go that high. All right, that's fine. So we won't cut it. We won't cut it to 48. We'll cut it just by 30. Okay, so now you'll see that we're actually on 60 hertz. We're trying to basically just destroy any sound that plays through there.
Cuts.
And it doesn't really help, does it? So you'll see that you still hear. Okay, so you still hear it. So that's not the answer. The answer is to come in through the effects and do what's their noise reduction capability. So, and this is part of your homework. So that's why this is fun. So you'll look here and you want to grab a portion of the sound where it's just the noise that you want to get rid of. All right, so that's a good starting point. Then you come up to effects, noise reduction, capture noise print. And what that will do is that's basically going to tell you that the portion of the sound that you just captured, it's going to use for reduction. You can choose to turn that off. So it's just telling you it's load as a noise print. So now when you unselect, you can come in here, go back into noise reduction and go to noise reduction process. And the noise print that we loaded is this right here. This is the noise print. So if you want to see how the noise sounds when you absolutely remove every last trace of it, you can actually hit your noise reduction to 100, hit reduce by 100, and hit apply. And you'll see that it absolutely got rid of that noise. So when I play it now.
Cuts and shadow cuts. It is frequently at the edges of things that we learn most about the middle. Ice and steam can reveal more about the nature of water than water alone ever could.
All right, so it's not perfect. Okay, by doing noise, the things you have to understand about noise reduction is that when you go into, if you go savage like this, I'm gonna play just the noise for you now of what we're removing, and what you're gonna hear is you're gonna hear a fair bit of my voice in the output. Okay, so but what you're also what you're getting out of this, if and it's hard to hear from where you're probably in the back seats, is that you get a hint of my voice happening, and that's where you see the noise level dipping, but that some of the higher sibilants, you know, the S's and the T's, and that when you say those words, some of that is being filtered out as part of this. Okay. So just be aware of that. This was a very simple example that you guys, I encourage you guys to download and take with you these audio clips. You can experiment with some of these in the portion of, oh, sorry about that. In the ability to try different severity levels. I mean, you don't have to immediately go for the jugular with this. You can actually start with it, start here and preview it. No, don't have
at the edges of things that we learn most about the middle. Ice and steam can reveal more about the nature of water than water alone ever could.
So when you're listening, so what I'm listening for here is I just move that slider up until I don't hear the noise anymore. So then I know that about 10 or 11 decibels is the right point for this. Now I can actually go down here to the noise reduction, hit play it again.
Is going to be unique, and the conditions under which
and start to lift it up until I don't hear that noise anymore.
To speak about what is normal. Apocalypse Now, by almost any criteria, schedule, budget, artistic ambition, technical innovation, qualifies as the cinematic equivalent of ice and steam.
All right. So once I got to that, now what you'll notice is that when you play this back, if you're listening with headphones, you'll still hear the hum inside some of the audio that's spoken. That's because this is, noise removal. It's not, the best case scenario for noise is that you remove it or that you don't record it. Okay. That's the best case scenario for noise removal, is that you don't record noise and you get beautiful sound. I worked a film where I had a neon light decoration in a pizza parlor, and that thing hums so damn loud. And I mean, we tried all kinds of things to mitigate it. What we ended up doing is we ended up going down to the hardware store, buying a bat of insulation and shoving it around this thing until it quit. Until we couldn't hear it anymore. And then only for the shots where that had to be shown would we take that off and then shoot it. And then we had room tone to cover all of that. That was hairball. I mean, it was one of those things where you're just like, you're looking at the director and they're like, how are we going to fix this? And you're like, well, we got some options, but are you ready to hear them? And they're like, yeah, because they want to get the best sound they can. So just be aware that when you're doing noise removal and sound removal from noise reduction and sound removal in an audition, which is your homework, there's a point of overdoing it. And when you overdo sound removal and noise reduction, you will hear it will degrade the audio to the point that it either sounds kind of like you recorded in a tin can, or it has kind of a bubbling sort of phased quality to it that really, really isn't working. It doesn't work. And there's if you overdo noise reduction, you'll get it. You'll hear it. And it works best when you do it with earphones on so that you don't lose your mind. Let's see. Moving to sound removal. Yes. So sound removal, I don't have a great example of this, but one of the ones I did before was I had maybe I'll bring it for next time. I have an audio file that was me walking from here to, I think it was Chick-fil-A. And I just let the recorder run while I was walking. And it's all of the city sounds that you get from this building to the other side of Mendocino. And it's definitely a soundscape that is and if you ever had to remove car horns, police or ambulance sirens, birds chirping, sometimes wind through the trees, depending. The sound removal capability in Audition is pretty good. I mean, it's not. Again, I don't want to lull you into this sense that fixing it in post is the answer, because it's not. The best solution for noise reduction is not to record the noise. And the best sound removal strategy is not to record the sound that you want removed, is to clean your environment up. If you saw how most films are made in audio post studios, you wouldn't recognize them, because the very worst ones will bring they'll bring the talent in to read their lines and lip sync what they said on screen. It is called ADR. Does anybody know what ADR is? Yeah, it is. It is the last hope of any director's dream of making a film happen. You do not want to use ADR if you don't have to. You want to get clean dialogue on set. What's that?
Everybody does.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, you have something? Yeah. Evan, quiet. Okay.
I was going to say, I have a small clip if you want to use it before some week out. I also have to take burglar alarm off.
Oh, good. Yeah, see.
If you want,
Sure, put it in the Dropbox. I'll bring it up. We got a little time. And this will be Randy's challenge for the week. So good times. All right, I gotta go find where this is gonna be. Oh, look at all these fun things that are in here from previous. Oh, that's fantastic. Hi, everybody. I wonder where it'll be. All right. You want to stick around for that? That's fine. If you have questions, I'm happy to take them now. If you don't have any questions and you want to take off, you are certainly welcome to do that. But I will stick around and I'll keep the stream open so that I can do this last bit of somersaults with audio. Thank you. And if you have not brought your USB flash drive up, please do so. Yes, I gotta go republish it once I get adjustments.
So we just need to copy the files from
yeah, take the files with you. The homework files for this week are on lynda.com. So you can pull the exercise files off of Lynda. Yeah.
Okay.
I do. No, it'd be our hall. Sorry about that. I didn't know there was more than one. All right. Larry.
There might have been something that I missed, but when you highlight a specific portion that you want to get rid of,
Yes.
and then that cover it for the whole clip?
Yeah. So
How did that?
let's back this up. So what I did was I went in here and I'll zoom in. I went over here at this beginning part and I just selected the noise that I wanted to get rid of. Okay. Then I come over to Effects, Noise Reduction, Capture Noise Print. All right. And then it does what it does. Now I unselect it so that it got the whole, or you select everything. That's the other way you could do it, is you either select nothing or select all. And then you go Noise Reduction, Process, and then you go through this whole thing. So, and then you can click Apply and it wipes, and it does over the whole range.
I just missed that one piece.
Got it. Yeah. Well, where would it be? Inside door. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to open this. I'm just going to drag it over here, actually. So let's do that. Okay. Inside door.
Yeah, so it's just the actress is coming in, and you hear the squeak of the door, you hear the chime of the burglar alarm.
All right. Let's have a listen.
Action!
Yeah. Okay. Good times. So the thing I didn't show you guys, which is always useful, is the spectrum analyzer portion of, yeah, and you'll see, so you can see where the squeak is. Okay, so especially this part right here. You can select just that part of this and just play the squeak. Alfred Hitchcock is calling. And if you wanted to remove that, you could actually, yeah, you could go into the same thing, noise reduction, capture noise print, or learn sound model. Yeah, you can do it that way as well. That is also possible. Sound remover gives you a little more control over removing exactly what you're trying to get. So notice that it actually took care of a lot of that squeak right off the top. What's that? Beep beep beep. Okay, so but look down here. This is the after. Right now it's the before. If I click it on, you see that it's actually reduced a fair bit of the beeps as well, and that's just from selecting this one chime. So yeah, you still have the beeps there, but that squeak is gone, and so you can go back and finesse it further. Do another noise print for just the parts here. So if you wanted to, you don't have to just use the selection tool. Yeah, you can paint it on with this as well. You can kind of go, these are the areas that you want to deal with, and then you do the same thing again, noise sound remover, and it's going to, now it should be a little bit closer. Yeah, still not there. So yeah. That's closer. Yeah. Again, it's a. Oh, it's only out of one. Oh, I see what I did. I only did it out of one channel, so I need to do it out of both channels. And it looks like it also has some stuff there too. So there's sound model, and now we will go back, reduce it. Yeah, so now you can see it took a lot out. Okay, so I mean the sound remover tool, hugely helpful in the right circumstances, can be very damaging to your sound. Notice that it's knocked out a whole bunch of the audio spectrum is basically cut. So some of those high frequencies are now completely missing from this final audio. So just be aware of that. It's very powerful, but if you're reckless, you can really kind of do damage that you wouldn't want to do. So.
And you're welcome to use that.
That's a good clip, actually. Yeah, I'd like that. I had one with car alarms. There was one year, I think it was 2 years ago, when there was an evening where I was talking about audio, and there was a car alarm going off outside. And I was like, God, I wish I had my recorder, because I would record that and then eliminate it. All right. So that's going to do it for tonight. Yeah, I mean, Audition's very helpful for some of those, the audio repair aspects of it, especially the spectral audio, or the spectral audio. You can tell I'm at the end of my rope. Is hugely valuable. I really like this tool. All right, I'm gonna quit this. I'm going to quit this, and I'm going to